I want to talk in this segment and the next one also about the Nazis. And I want to do it for two reasons. I want to document the way in which the Nazis learned from progressive Democrats in America. It seems like a startling thing to say, but I'll show you why it is true. And I also want to show that Nazism was from the beginning, like fascism in general, of which Nazism is a species or is a part, why fascism is clearly a phenomenon of the left. But let's begin with the Nazis gathering in a room in the early 1930s. This is before the Holocaust, before the gas chambers, before the so-called final solution. The Nazis are really discussing how do you create a racist society. And they're talking about, specifically, they're debating what came to be known as the Nuremberg laws, laws that turned Jews into second-class citizens, laws that segregated Jews, laws that confiscated Jewish property. And I'm going to make the claim, and this is a claim I've documented in my book, Death of a Nation, and shown, depicted, I think, in an effective way in the movie called Death of a Nation. The Nazis got the idea and the blueprint for the Nuremberg laws from the Democrats of the American South. Now, what happened was that there was a prominent Nazi in the room that day who had studied in the United States. And so while the Nazis were arguing, they were running into all kinds of roadblocks. It's like, how do we create a racist society? What would our laws look like? And they also ran into the specific conundrum, how do we decide who is a Jew? You've got people who are Jews, who are religious, but then you have secular Jews. Do they count as Jews also? And what about people who are half Jewish or 1/4 Jewish? Do they count as Jews? How much Judaism do you need, or how much Jewishness do you need to qualify as a Jew? Well, as it turns out, this Nazi who studied in America said to his fellow Nazis, hey guys, we don't have to worry about any of this because these problems have already been thought about and they've already been solved. Admittedly not solved with regard to Jews, but with regard to blacks. And so all we have to do is cross out the word black and write in the word Jew, and we will have our Nuremberg laws. This again, wow. You have, and this is a phenomenon, like so many of the other things I've been talking about today, erased from American textbooks. You don't find it taught in the classroom. You won't find documentaries about it, and yet the evidence for it is unmistakable. In fact, there is a book by a Yale scholar named Whitman. It's called Hitler's American Model. Notice that even Whitman is sort of hedging his bets. He should have called it Hitler's Democratic Model, but he didn't want to do that. He himself is on the progressive side. Hitler's American Model. Hitler got a bunch of his ideas from America, and he describes the incident I'm talking to you about. Now, the reason that Whitman is being a little disingenuous is that when the Nazis referred to these laws in the American South, they knew that these laws were passed by Democrats. This was explicitly brought up by the Nazis, and they knew something that, again, is not taught in America, and that is that all the segregation laws of the South, without exception, were passed by Democratic legislators. They were signed by Democratic governors. They were put into effect and enforced by Democratic officials. So these are Democratic laws, and the Democratic Party bears the responsibility for them. And to this degree, the Democratic Party was the teacher of the Nazis and was the inspiring force behind the Nuremberg laws, showed the Nazis how to get it done. In a very interesting part of this debate, the Nazis asked, taking up the question I mentioned a moment ago about who is a Jew, they said, well, how did the Democrats solve that one in America? How did they decide who's black? Because if you think about it, the same questions arise. You have people who are half black. You have people who are black, but they're of black ancestry, but light-skinned. And so the Nazi who had studied in America goes, well, in America, the Democrats use the one-drop rule. One drop of black blood makes you black. And amazingly, remarkably, with bitter irony, one can note the Nazis found this racism to be too extreme. The Nazis go, what? One single drop of blood? This is ridiculous. So this is too racist even for us. And so the Nazis decided on a more moderate, you can say, definition, and that is that you had to be 75% Jewish to count as a Jew. In other words, if you were half Jewish, that's not enough. If you're a quarter Jewish, that's certainly not enough. But you would have to have, you could say 3 out of 4 of your grandparents need to be Jewish. That gives you the 75%. And so we have here a chapter that has been greatly hidden in American education and American historiography, the way in which the Nazis got their segregation laws, got their Nuremberg laws, their state-sponsored discrimination, their property confiscation, the initial evils of the Nazis that later led to the Holocaust. This was inspired by the Democratic Party of the United States.